What's up, guys? This is Cashren here with the very first Star Wars lore video. So today we're going to talk about the Rule of Two. Now, the first thing I want to say about the Rule of Two is that it is actually a philosophy. It was never a mandated rule. It was a belief that only two exists could ever exist at a given time. That there should always be a Dark Lord of the Sith that embodied power, but then there should be an apprentice that craved that power. And so in this way, you would build up the apprentice to become greater than the master. Now, the issue with this rule is that it was only focused mainly as Sith, but it also applied to the Jedi in a certain light, mainly in the way that Jedi want this peacefulness within not only their environment, but also with themselves. And so you had a Jedi Master that believed this is that embodied peacefulness, but then you had yourself a Padawan that craved to become like that Jedi Master and have that peacefulness to them. So in that sense, both Jedi and Sith are pretty much the same side of the same coin. Imagine a coin, alright? And that coin is the Force. And then you've got yourself the light side of the Force, which is one side of the coin. And then you have the dark side of the Force, which is the other side of the coin. Essentially, you've got the Jedi on one side and you have the Sith on the other side. And they are pretty much the same, just they live on two different sides of that coin. And so, when people bicker back and forth that the Jedi are so much different than the Sith, really they're not. They just have two different philosophies. In fact, they're actually closer than they would like to admit. So, with that said, we're going to get back on track about the Rule of Two. The Rule of Two, although it was a philosophy, one man decided, well, I'm going to enact it as a law. And that man was Darth Bane. Now, Darth Bane had a very literal interpretation of the Rule of Two. And with Darth Bane, he was in an era where the Sith were getting their asses handed to them, firmly handed to them by the Jedi. And it mainly came down with the fact that the Sith always had to fight each other. And this has been dated back for so long that the Sith always crave power. That is something that never changes and never will change. The issue with having multiple Siths, multiple Sith Masters, was that they would fight each other over their power. They coveted the other guy's power. So, with infighting, they became very weak because they were fighting two different battles all the time. They were always fighting a battle with the Jedi, but they were also fighting a battle within themselves. And this is where most of the Sith power just kind of vanished, was whenever there would be almost like a civil war type of occurrence, a conflict, if you will. So Darth Bane saw this, and he saw how watered down the Sith had become because of this. The power of the Sith was really weak, and it wasn't doing well, basically. With that said, he decided, well, the Rule of Two needs to be enacted as a law versus a philosophy, and he firmly believed that it should only be one Sith Lord and his apprentice. So what did Darth Bane do? Well, he obviously wanted to be that Dark Lord. So he went around and killed everybody. And this is known as the Sith cleansing, where he basically cleansed the Sith and committed an entire genocide of his own people, just taking out anyone who wasn't himself and his apprentice. Now, I'm not going to get into all the apprentices he had because there were multiple ones, but essentially what ended up happening was that he became the only Sith Lord. And in this time period, he wanted to make sure that he had the strongest apprentice he could possibly find. So he found as many Force-sensitive people he could, and he just had himself almost like disciples, if you will. Just a pool of people who wanted to become his apprentice. And he had them fight each other for that position. And that's how he got his power, was that he would have people do things for him for the reward of being thought of for the apprentice role. And so Darth Bane would just search, and he found many different apprentices and tried to find himself the perfect apprentice. He wanted someone to forward the rule of two. He wanted someone who would obey and who would see his rule as a mandate and forward it on, which would start his own lineage. Later, he would find this apprentice, and he started his own Sith Order, which would actually surpass a lot longer than he would actually like to believe. He passed on this plan after committing genocide of his own people. He had two plans that he wanted to intertwine together, and none of them are original plans. These have been Sith rules for so freaking long, it's not even funny. Since the first Sith. Essentially, the two plans were the rule of two and something called a Sith Imperative. Now, the rule of two was incredibly important to the Sith Imperative. The rule of two allowed the Sith to fly under radar, so that way the Jedi would not sense them and just take them out. And so, with the rule of two, they were able to build themselves up and become just this powerful force without having to worry about any interference. And what they would end up doing, as you know, throughout the series, if you've seen all the movies and you've seen the extended universe, a lot of Sith say that the rule of two is imperative, but then they have 4 different apprentices. That's not actually what's going on. What's going on is it's a mind game, and the Sith Master is using them, saying, oh yeah, you're my apprentice. But really, he only has one promising apprentice, while having everyone believe, you're my apprentice, you're my main guy. And this allowed him to use them however he saw fit. And this was every single master-apprentice relationship past Darth Bane. So, down the line, way further down, we have a certain someone who actually ends up achieving what Darth Bane set out to do. And that would be Sidious. Now, Sidious, you know that name very well. He is of the Sith Order. He is the lineage of Darth Bane's Sith Order. And he took the rule of two and the Sith Imperative, and that is what destroyed the Jedi, not the Sith, the Jedi. Now, what is the Sith Imperative? What exactly is that? I've said that a few times, and I haven't really explained it. It's a plot by the Order of the Sith that you should make precise movements that are not only political, but also militaristic. And it's all to eradicate not only the Jedi Order, but also the Galactic Republic. The Galactic Republic had always been behind the Jedi Order, which made them the enemy in the eyes of the Sith. So if you were to take out the Jedis, you would also have to take out the Galactic Republic. And if you didn't, let's say you only took out the Galactic Republic, but left the Jedi Order, the Jedis would rebuild the Galactic Republic. And then if you took out the Jedi, the Galactic Republic would try and rebuild the Jedi. So, obviously they were working together, and the Sith recognized this. So the Sith Imperative was not just to focus on the Jedi, but also to take out the Galactic Republic and then replace both of them, so that way you had a Sith ruling galaxy. Which, in theory, was brilliant. And Sidious ended up doing that. He ended up winning at the game of what would end up being the Sith Imperative. He was able to build up to that level where he could basically, with just 2 words, take out the Jedi. And we'll talk about those 2 words in another video. But that is what ended up happening to the Jedi, and that's why they ended up becoming extinct, was because the Sith Imperative just was a snowballed effect. And so, and it helped to have the rule of 2 there, because even Yoda, one of the most powerful Grand Masters, did not even know who the Sith Lord was. He knew there was a Sith Master. He knew there was a Sith Master from the first movie in Phantom Menace. But he couldn't figure out who it was. And that was the beauty of the rule of 2. Turning it and cannibalizing just what ended up being this philosophy about teaching into this massive plot to help further the Sith Imperative. The original rule of 2 was to teach Sith to have only one apprentice, and for the apprentice to only have one master. And that way you can further your education and become strong. And in that sense, the same would go with the Jedi. But to cannibalize it, the Dark Lord Darth Bane was able to find a way to take out the Sith. And so, I think this was a beautiful idea. It was fantastic, and it ended up succeeding. What I would love to see, closing out this segment, I would love to see a movie after the current trilogy we're going through. I would love them to go all the way back to the beginning with Darth Bane, showing way before the Clone Wars, right after the Old Republic, showing how the Sith wavered and how weak they became, and Darth Bane ended up taking what was going on and molding it into his own plot, which took years and years and years to get anywhere with. And so that's going to be the end of this segment. This is one of my all-time favorite. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. This is one of my all-time favorite topics to talk about, because a lot of people have their own belief about the rule of 2. Everyone sees it a little bit differently. There's all kinds of interpretations of it. And really, this is mine, is that the rule of 2 had 2 sides to it. There was the ancient rule of 2, and then there was Darth Bane's rule of 2. I see 2 different kinds of rule of 2. One of them was just a philosophy that was to encourage a monogamous teaching role versus this cannibalistic plan to overthrow the Jedi. If you disagree with me, leave a comment down below with your interpretation with your interpretation and let me know what you think. If you'd like to see another video, please leave a comment down below telling me which one you would like to hear. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. Please remember to caress that sexy subscribe button. And always remember, until the next video, stay excellent to each other, guys.